Brought to you by Lacrosse Extras, it's time for another episode of The Player and the Journalist, hosted by Karson Harris and David Vick. Karson is a former All-American at Drexel, the program's all-time leading goal scorer, and the CAA's leader in draw controls. I'm a journalist covering women's lacrosse since 2019 and the founder of Lacrosse Extras. In this episode, we take a deep dive into the national championship game and talk about the transfer portal. Natty Championship went down in Carson's neck of the woods, Cary, North Carolina, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Interesting crowd. What did you think about the game? First thoughts?
So I actually got to go because it was in Cary, which is like 15 minutes from where I live. So it was very fun to go. I know there's a lot of talk about like keeping it in Cary, moving it somewhere else. Like I think there's a lot. I selfishly love that it's in Cary because I always get to go. But I can see the points of it being moved somewhere else as well. I think that my initial thoughts were when Northwestern started out hot, I was like, uh-oh, because from my experience, like teams that start out that hot in a game that they shouldn't be starting out that hot, I would argue more frequently than not, it ends up being a battle in the end, and it just depends on whether or not they can hold on to that lead or not. The other team will always inevitably come back, unless there's an actual skill level like deficit. I think that more times than not, the other team does come back, and then it's just like up to the team that's ahead to like hold on to that lead. So when they went up, I was like, well, this is really cool, but I didn't have like any sort of feeling that Northwestern was just going to blow them out of the water. Like I don't
really.
That's just not how those games normally go. Like, I just feel like sometimes they do. I'm not saying they all the time do, but like in a national championship game, the stakes are that high. The teams are that evenly matched. Like, Boston College was going to turn it on. It was just whether or not Northwestern had gotten themselves far enough ahead and like could play well enough to close it out, I feel like was what I was going to be. But I didn't, I don't know. I was kind of like, I thought they were going to hold it out. I did. Like, I was like, they're going to win, but I didn't think they'd win by like 10, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I thought it was over. I was texting someone I was texting a Northwestern fan during the game, actually. And she was so excited at the start of the game. And by the end of the game, she was not. But yeah, so I like watching it live. Like going into the game, I picked BC to win, but I picked BC to win because I thought Shea Dolce was gonna, like, if they were gonna win, it would be because of her, and it ended up kind of being because of her, which we'll get to. But for Northwestern, they were up 6-0 at the end of the first quarter, and not only were they up 6-0, I looked at the box score because I did not recall this. They were up 6-0, and Skane did not have a single one of those goals, and wow. So I knew she got off to a slow start. I didn't know it was that slow. So when I was watching it, I was like, eventually she's going to get, she finished with 5 goals, which if they went up 6-0, if someone told you they were going to go up 6-0, she wasn't going to score any of those 6 goals, but she would finish with 5. You would be like, oh, Northwestern's going to win this game.
Yeah, those were a sneaky 5 goals too. Like I finished the game and I was there with my boyfriend and I was like, she didn't play. Like, what did she do during that game? And he like looked it up and he was like, no, I think the announcer said that she had 5. And I was like, there's no way she had 5. Like, I maybe 3. I can maybe remember 3. And he was like, no, like he looked it up. He was like, no, she had 5. I was like, oh my, that was the sneakiest 5 goals ever. Like I felt like that threw me off even at the end of the game.
Yeah. Sorry. So she had 5 goals and I believe it was only on 7 shots, which is highly efficient. And so I think they should have gotten her involved more offensively, but it's hard to, it's easy for me to say that when the whole defense is focused on her. But she did her job. 5 goals, 7 shots. She did her job. So
yeah, they were sending 2 to her almost immediately. Every time she caught it, they were sending 2 to her. And I think like that kind of got relinquished a little bit as the game went on because Northwestern had other people stepping up, so they couldn't do as much. But like, and I thought Northwestern was going to win because I thought when it came down to the end of the game, Northwestern would be more level-headed than BC. Like I thought BC might like make some mistakes, get the cards, have silly turnovers. That's kind of what I thought BC would do, and it kind of ended up being what Northwestern did. Like I was really surprised at how they ended the game. I thought for sure that was going to go the other way. But yeah, what else was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't know. Those five were pretty sneaky, and they did. Oh my God, what was this? Whatever, I can't remember.
For sure. So they were sneaky, and you mentioned BC being level-headed at the end. They were also extremely balanced offensively. This blew my mind. Okay, so their shot distribution, I don't have all of their players. I just have the major ones and the ones that took the most shots. Rachel Clark, McKenna Davis, Cassidy Deweeks, and Emma Lapinto each only had 3 shots. Andrea Reynolds had 2, Ryan Smith had 2, and Kayla Martello had 7. But 3 of her 7 came in a minute and 59-second stretch to end the second quarter when she scored 3 goals. So if you take out that stretch, I mean, they were so balanced off. And Belle Smith, I think she had 1 shot, maybe. I mean, like it was crazy to see how balanced they were offensively, and because of that balance, Northwestern just didn't have an answer for that defensively, and that was surprising to see because Northwestern's defense is so good, but I mean when you
Yeah.
move the ball well, good things happen. So
I remember what I was gonna say. I was gonna say that I think Boston College is known for like that double team game. Like they play that double team so well. They always send it. Like I've noticed in their last couple games, they're pretty phenomenal actually at sending a double team and recovering on the backside really well. Like, and then they get back. Like they're really good at knowing when to leave that double team, when to attack it, like when to try to get the turnover, when to just like double and push them out of the 8. Really, really good at that. And so I was watching this game. I was watching them double team Izzy Skane, and I was like, in like the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter, and I was like, uh-oh, that's gonna be really hard for Northwestern to beat. And they did well, and they found open players, and they were dodging one-on-one really well. Like they were moving the ball and dodging on that backside really well. But I was thinking like, oh, that's gonna hurt Northwestern. Like that double team. I think Boston College's ability to double team and slide on the backside really, really helped them win that game. But I was also going to say, I was looking at the stats of it. Like Northwestern, statistically, I don't know if you were going to get to this too, like deserve to win that game. They had more shots. They had more shots on goal. They had less turnovers. They had less fouls. They had more ground balls, and they were even on the draws. Like if you were to look at the game statistically, and it's this game having 5 goals, like you would say Northwestern wins that game. So I thought that I didn't realize that until I looked back at it. And then I was like, well, what was it? You know what I mean? Like that was all of the good. That was everything. If you win those things, you win the game. But then they had 4 cards in the fourth quarter. Boston College had 1.
Like the cards were crazy all game. It was like confetti falling down.
But they were even. Like they were pretty even throughout the first 3 quarters. Like Boston College had more in the third, I think. But then they were like pretty even through the first and the second. And then like, I mean, that kills you. You can't have 4 cards in 15 minutes and win a national championship. Like that's even if everything else is going your way. Like that was pretty crazy. And then this is entirely my opinion, and I've never played for a national championship, so like I can only imagine what like my shot selection would be like in a national championship game. But like I was really surprised by some of their shot selection in the fourth quarter. They had some pretty wide open shots that they weren't finishing. Like it just looked like that shot. Like I feel like Northwestern's MO is just like will the ball into the back of the net. Like when they shoot it, they're just like all in, their whole body just like wills the ball into the net, and those shots just weren't falling as much as they were and which is almost like they were timid, like almost like they hadn't been there before, like they were nervous, which surprises me because they're not, and they've been there before and they won it last year. So like that was surprising to me, but I was a little bit surprised by the fourth quarter shots also by them. I don't know if you agree.
So question for you, since you were there at the start of the game when Northwestern went up 6-0, it just felt like BC was just not into the game defensively, or pretty much the whole team. It just seemed like they were slow to react. They didn't have a lot of energy. And then from the end of the first quarter on, it just seemed like the momentum slowly started building to BC. And so I wonder if that do you think that had any effect on Northwestern? Because it seemed like it was a pro BC crowd on TV.
Oh, it was absolutely, honestly. So yes, I do think BC was reacting really slow. They in the first quarter, like things were, I was like watching plays like, oh, this person's going to go. And then it would happen. And like, I shouldn't be able to predict that faster than the BC defenders, like on the side. Yeah. And so, I mean, eventually that first quarter, like they recovered from that, obviously. And I've been to a lot of the BC games now because they played in Charlotte when it was the ACC championship. And then I was there at this national championship game. Like they don't need more fans to have louder fans. I have never seen anything like it. Like They were even. There was an even amount of Northwestern and Boston College fans there, definitely. And you would not have known it by like the loudness of everything. And yeah, I think that was I thought that throughout the whole game. I was like, this is gonna help shift their momentum. Like every time Northwestern does something, they're screaming. And like it would be I was thinking about how hard that would be to play against. Like if you're Northwestern, because like they were doing good things too, and their crowd was cheering at like an appropriate like not an appropriate level, but at like a reasonable crowd level, like they weren't underperforming, but the BC crowd is just so loud that like when you mess up and you do something wrong, like to have that many people screaming for your error would be hard. And I don't know if that's what was in their head. That was what I was thinking throughout the game. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
The BC this time of year when the neon comes out, it's a big game. And like, I love seeing they came out with the neon shirts on and warm-ups when they took the field. And I love the neon. It's like neon season for Boston College. I love that. They need to break out some neon uniforms at some point. I'm not sure if they will.
Yeah.
So, also you mentioned the crowd. I thought there were two key moments that really changed the game, and they both went in the favor of BC. So at the end of the first half, let's see, what was it? Yeah, Northwestern was up 8-6, and they had a fast break opportunity at the very end of the first half, and Shea Dolce made a very nice save. And so I thought that was huge. I'm super big on finishing a half, finishing a quarter. I think those can be huge momentum swings. And so that would have put Northwestern up 3. And really, I feel like would have stemmed the tide a lot because they were up 6-0. And then even if you get outscored 6-3 in the second quarter, if you go up by 3 and you had the last goal, like that's just like you're taking a little bit of life out of them going into the half. And instead it went the opposite way. Dolce made the save, and it's like, oh man. So that was one really big moment in my opinion. The second one, which you could hear the crowd on this one on TV, I'm sure it was insane in person. McKenna Davis's backhand goal with 1 second left in the third quarter.
Yeah.
On TV, it sounded like a freaking bomb went off. Okay, they were so loud. And what was so crazy about this, obviously it was all over Instagram, backhand goal. It's like it's a huge momentum goal, but it was even a bigger goal because of 1 second left in the third, and also because Northwestern was a player up. Northwestern, that's a 2-goal swing right there, and that's a big swing heading into the fourth quarter when the palms start to get a little sweatier. You're coming down to the end of it. Like that was a massive goal from McKenna Davis.
It was, and it was cool that it was her because she's such like an assister. Like she feeds, like she's not normally that person like putting herself in those crazy. She's not normally the one scoring, let alone like a crazy backhanded goal with a second left kind of thing. Yeah. So I was happy for her. That it was a really insane goal. It was cool.
And she was hyped up afterwards too. Like they had all the momentum after that goal.
Oh yeah,
and from that, I feel like at least for me, from that moment on, it just felt like. I'm pretty sure they were down 1 at that point. They might have tied it. I think they were down 1. But it just seemed like from that moment on, it was like you were just waiting for them to take the lead. And then once they took the lead, it was like I didn't expect Northwestern to fold, but I just didn't. Once they took the lead, I didn't expect Northwestern to be able to get it back.
I did. I did. I didn't think like I was like I don't think this is gonna go this way. Like I really did. There was somebody, I don't know who it was. Somebody missed one wide, and I was like, they're gonna want that one back. That was it. That once they missed that wide, I was like, now it's done. I think it was like a minute with like a minute and a half left or something. So that wasn't like a huge proclamation that I made, but it was definitely like that one. I was like, oh, that's the one they're gonna want back. Like that was the goal right there. I think that was to tie it. But yeah, I don't know. It was a really good game. It was a really fun game to watch. I do think that like, I think by the second quarter, it was kind of like, oh, they're definitely like, they're coming back. Like this game's going to be a good one. I was happy it was fun to be there for it.
For sure.
The lady in front of me, this is just a funny story that I have to tell. The lady in front of me had like 3 kids and her husband was there. There was 3 minutes left in the game. It's like an insane game, right? 3 minutes left. The kid's like, I want to leave. So he made his mother, he was little, like he was a little kid, made his mother leave the game with like 3 minutes left. I was like, oh my God, I'm never having kids. Anyway, I just thought it was a funny story.
Because hell no.
I was like, Oh my God, she's just gonna leave with 3. She sat through this whole game, like it's 100 degrees out here. She sat through this whole game, and now she's just. Anyway, side note, I just thought it was crazy.
Did the rest of the family stay, or did they go too?
The dad stayed, and then there was a little girl there who clearly played lacrosse, and she stayed. But then the other kid and the mom and the son left. I was like,
Come on, Dad, you need to take the kid out.
He was like you could tell he was like a coach. Like he was like,
okay.
He was lacrosse. Yeah, he was a lacrosse guy. But it was so funny.
Very cool. Awesome. So, just a few more things for me on Northwestern. You mentioned the shot they wanted to get back. They had the look to end the game off the free position. They've run that play. I've seen them run it a few times. They ran it against Penn, and every time I've seen them run it, they've scored off of it. I don't know why. No one can stop it. And every single time, Dylan Amonte is wide open. So if you go back and watch it, Erin Kuykendall has the ball in her stick at the free position, which I think that's probably who you want to have the ball in her stick. Obviously, Izzy Skane is like, she can rip it from there. But as far as like playmaking ability, like there's no one better than Erin Kuykendall in college lacrosse this year. Like she can do so much. She sees the field so well. So she has the ball in her stick at the 8-meter, and not a bad angle if she wants to shoot it. I mean, obviously she made the right decision not to. They had the perfect play. So if you go back and watch it, Izzy Skane and Dylan Amonte are side by side on the 8-meter. And when the whistle blows, Skane backs up and Amonte goes to cage. And so Cassidy Weeks got a little confused and she hesitated for a second because she kind of leaned towards Skane, and Dylan Amonte's wide open, perfect feed. And watching it live, I was like, oh, this is an easy goal. And I feel for Dylan Amonte because I don't know. Obviously I'm not in that position of a shooter to know like what her thought process was, but it seemed like she didn't really place it. It seemed like she just kind of shot it without placing it. And obviously it was this close to going in. So, I mean, it wasn't terrible placement. She was going for the corner. Dolce got big, got it with her leg. So, I mean, I thought for sure that was going to be a goal.
I mean, she faked it high. Like she did throw a fake in there. Like she faked high and Dolce bit high. Like she had that like right. And then, so like you shouldn't have to be like within a centimeter of the corner if you've done that. Like you've done the hard work. Like you've done the preliminary work to get her biting high. So like, I don't know. It's hard to talk about the placement of it because like
I know it's nitpicky. It's nitpicky.
Like that's a lucky save. That's not like you got to get your leg there. That's the skill part. But like to actually have that hit you and bounce off appropriately in the correct direction that's not in the goal is like, that's lucky. I mean, it was an unlucky play more than anything else, I think.
Yeah. If you're Dylan Amonte in that situation, is the best shot what she did to go bottom right? Is that the best shot?
Well, Dolce, she went bottom left.
Yeah, bottom left. Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it the wrong way. So yeah, she went bottom left on Dolce, which is non-stick side, and obviously she didn't save it with her stick. Is that the right shot? Is that the right placement?
In my opinion, yes, because most shots when you're in tight go high, so I wouldn't go high. And then she isn't stick side. She faked her top. Like I think so. I think that would have been the shot I would take. I mean, I shot everything bottom left, whether it was right or not. But I think so. I mean, I think to fake high and go low non-stick side's a good shot. It's just, like you can't predict you can't judge the goal. You can't like take into account the goalie sticking her leg out and kicking it with her shin. Like that's just not something that's impossible to judge.
Yeah. Also, if this is just bad luck as well, but if the ball was a few inches to the left or a few inches to the right, it probably would have hit Dolce's leg and still gone in. So it hit at the perfect spot.
That's what I mean. It had to hit her in the shin bone to bounce like directly out instead of like hit and bounce. So that's the part that I'm kind of like, that's tough.
Okay, I take back what I said. Karson has convinced me. But yeah, I think I mean they had the perfect look, and they had another one. Yeah. Lindsey Frank, I believe, is who it was at the very end of the game. It was a good look right in front of the cage. Man, I thought it was going to OT, and obviously, like you said, you thought Northwestern, like even if they lost the lead, they were still going to be able to win it. I mean, if it goes to OT, if you win the draw, you're probably going to win the game. I mean, so That
Yeah.
was
And they were winning the draw. That's the thing is like
Mhm.
they won a cut like 3 big draws in a row at the end. Like I was like, oh well, they're gonna win the draws. Like they can go score, win another draw, and they did. And I was like, perfect. And then they won 2 more, and I was like, one of these has got to go in. And I guess like it wasn't even their shot selection. It was more just like they just like I said, they just couldn't get him to fall. Like the things they can normally will into the goal just weren't happening.
And that happens to everyone. I mean, sometimes it's just not like it's not your moment, and like you just have a bad stretch, and obviously it was just a bad time for that. But so last thing for me, I want to talk about the goalies real quick. So Shea Dolce, which this is another reason I thought the game was over. She is the only goalie that BC will play. That they played their backups this year, I believe, at least one senior, maybe it was 2, on senior day, but that's it for the final few minutes. Like they ride or die. Excuse me, they ride and die with Shea Dolce. Like if she's not playing well, they have no one else to turn to, and that's just what they've shown us this year. Acacia Walker was unwilling to go to anyone else. It wasn't like last year when she stuck with Rachel Hall for a while and then eventually went to Dolce. Like she was trying to give Rachel Hall that ability. Like if you're gonna pull a goalie, I feel like 6-0. I think it was 12 minutes into the first quarter of the national championship. At least to just like talk to her on the sideline, give her a break. Like they didn't do any of that. I mean, I feel like one reason I thought the game was over is because if Shea Dolce has a bad day, they can't win. And so she bounced back with 9 saves and 13 goals allowed. So after that first quarter, she had 9 saves to. Actually, she might have had some. But anyways, so 9 saves and 13 goals allowed. That's a good bounce back.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and then heck, you can't like that last save of the game. You pretty much. That's all she needed to do right there. Like that save is plenty. And then did she actually touch the ball when she dove? We don't know after her kick save when she went flying through the air. I didn't see. Did she touch the ball? Was that a save or did it go wide? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know.
She kick saved it, and then
you're talking about the Amante shot.
Well, after she kick saved it, standing. And then Northwestern got the ball back and shot again. And Shea Dolce went flying through. She must have fallen with the kick save shot. And then she went flying through the air for like a diving save to the top right corner. But I couldn't tell if she touched it or not. It would have been a crazy save, but no one talked about it. So I was like, it must have been missing regardless. Maybe TV didn't even show it. I don't know. Like maybe they were recovering from her shot or something and it happened like off. I don't know. But I was just curious because it was an insane thing that happened and no one talked about it. So I was like, maybe she didn't touch it.
Well, so I believe that was the Lindsey Frank shot, and on TV it looked like she just sailed it high. But I don't know if Dolce got it. I'll have to go back and watch. Like watching it live, it just seemed like she missed it, but I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch. So
she must have. I don't think she must touch it, but Shea Dolce, her body did a crazy thing. I don't know.
So 9 saves for her, 5 for La Liberty. You hear it all the time. Not all saves are made equal. And my La Liberty, one of the most exciting college careers, I would say, in recent memory, going from Tufts to winning a national championship at Northwestern. She just didn't have it. She just wasn't as good this year for whatever reason. And she had some really good saves in the BC game at the start, but it was kind of like when like that Dolce save at the end of the first half, when BC needed a save, Dolce made a save. La Liberty was unable to answer when Northwestern really needed saves. And so I hate for her to go out like that. But like they just, not all saves are made equal. So that's just the unfortunate reality.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't notice her playing bad as much as I noticed Shea Dolce like making those huge saves, you know?
Yeah.
He hadn't had those, but
yeah. And so yeah, I mean that was a great game, great representation for our sport. Obviously, I wish more people were in the stands. What I will say about that, I don't want to be negative on our recap show, but some people are like, "Oh, it looks full on TV." I'm like, "Do you not notice the whole top section is blocked off? Like they don't have anyone in the second section." You know what I'm talking about? Like you were on the lower, were you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, there's no one up there. Like this is not a good look. And so they didn't show it like that too often. I was on the ESPN Plus broadcast, And so like whenever they would go to commercial break, it would look a little different than when it was on TV. Like there would be a few seconds of just showing randomness when they first went to commercial, and they showed that a few times. And so I was like, dang, this. But other than that,
the team sideline sign was full.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had one end of the stadium, like the behind one of the nets was empty, blocked off. Like you weren't allowed to go in there. And then
which is dumb.
My side, well, they didn't really need it. And then my side had like, it was like mostly full, not super full, but mostly full, like behind the net the other way. And then the other side was like, the ends were empty, but the middle was pretty full, I feel like.
It was definitely better on Sunday.
Yeah,
it was definitely better for the championship. I think so they decide the host venue a few years in advance. Like it's already decided for the next 3 or 4 years, I want to say. And so it'll be interesting to see if it goes back to Cary. Do you know how far Cary is from Charlotte? Is it a drive or?
It's like 2 hours, 2.5 maybe.
See, I feel like it needs to be closer to a big city.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think Charlotte would be your ticket there. It's not, Lacrosse isn't huge here, I feel like, in Charlotte.
Well, I mean, it's not huge in Cary either, but I mean,
it's bigger though. It's bigger in the Triangle than it is because like Cary's right next to the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, all of those schools that like UNC has it. So it's like, I would say it's bigger in the Triangle than it is in Charlotte. Probably.
Yeah. I didn't look this year, but 2 years ago I looked and there were like barely any hotels to choose from. Just like if you have it in a major city, you have a lot. It's easier for people to get in and out. As far as flights, you have hotels. So I don't know. I think next year it's at Gillette Stadium, which I think is way too. I'm gonna say
I'd rather have it in Cary than Gillette Stadium. That's crazy. That's gonna be empty.
Yeah, so I'm totally opposed to NFL stadiums. But anyway, so yeah, that is our national championship recap. Do you have anything else before we move on?
No.
Sweet. Okay, the transfer portal. Okay, this is this is interesting. I'm just gonna start off with some names that caught my eye, starting with Jenika Cuocco. Like when I texted you about this, you were like, "Yeah," you said something to the effect of you didn't think they would be able to keep her. I believe, is that correct?
I'm not surprised that she's transferring.
Yeah. I was surprised when I saw her. First off, I'm in the Inside Lacrosse article. Her name was top of the list. So I'm glad they showed some respect to her and put her at the top of the list. Maybe it was just surprising just to see it. Like if you would have told me she's probably going to transfer, okay, but just to see that she's transferring, that was just like, wow, it just kind of took me back. And I was like, this is crazy. So do you have any thoughts on Cuocco in particular?
Yeah, I think that 4 years ago, this would have been an entirely different story. Like, I think that the reason I'm not surprised has anything to do with Drexel. It doesn't have anything to do with that program. Like, obviously, I love that program, and has everything to do with just the way that the world is now. Like, the way that NCAA sports is that, like, if you get yourself big enough, you go somewhere you're going to win a national championship. You go somewhere that can take you to the Final Four. Like, unfortunately, that's just, like, the way that the system plays now, and I don't really like it. I'm not a fan of that. I think that I think you should stick with your school. Like I'm old school, I guess, in that way. Like I think that if you've stuck out your team, like you've stuck your team, they've stuck to you, like they're the ones that have helped you grow into the player that you are. Like so I'm not really about it, but I also am torn because like everyone has their reasons and I don't know their reasons. So like I can't sit here and tell them that they're wrong. And I mean, if you have the opportunity to go win a Final Four, like, sure, go win a Final Four. I can see the pull for that for sure. But that's kind of why I said I wasn't surprised because, like, that's just kind of what people do now. Like, they grow at a middle upper tier program, and then they go somewhere they're going to win a Final Four game. And, like, unfortunately, that's just kind of like Rachel Clark. Like, that's just kind of kind of the MO now, I feel like.
Yeah. I think 2 games really solidified. If I had to guess, like, don't get me wrong, I don't blame her for transferring because, like, I'm old school as well in terms of I think you should stick with your school that recruited you, that you're at. But obviously, there's so much that goes on. I mean, I haven't heard anything bad about Drexel, but in terms of, like, culture and, like, relationships, there's so much that goes into that at every single school. And so, but I think with Jenika, Like, she is so good. She deserves to be on. She's not good. She is great. She is exceptional. She is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
She deserves to be on the biggest stage and have all the eyes on her. Because if she transfers, say if she goes to, say, Northwestern, for example, because they're going to need a goalie. With If she goes to Northwestern and wins a national championship, that could change the future trajectory of her life. Does she want to be in college coaching? Does she want to, not that she can't get there from going to Drexel, but if she wins a national championship and adds that to her resume, does she want to be a goalie coach afterwards? Does she want to do private clinics? If you play for a school like Northwestern or North Carolina or BC, people are going to know your name, and that's going to translate to opportunities that come outside the lacrosse field when your playing days are over. So I think,
Right.
and even more so as the years go on, those opportunities are going to get bigger and bigger for future athletes as the sport gets bigger and more money's involved in the sport. But what I was going to say is, I think 2 games really probably were not the reason she transferred, but they didn't help her stay. That is the Stony Brook game and the conference championship, where she got no help from her offense whatsoever. I can't imagine how frustrated she had to be after that game. I mean, she's not going to come out and say it because she's a good teammate, but you got to feel some type of way when you have the game of your life, which the game of your life before that was just like a week ago because you're that good. But she got no help from her offense. And then in the NCAA tournament against Princeton, the offense, I think it was 4-0, maybe 5-0. They got off to a hot start and then they just went away. And I think from her perspective, like, if the offense is the problem, you got to think, well, it's not going to get any better next year. Corinne Bednarik is graduating, and she's the number 1 player on our offense. So I just feel like I don't have a problem with her decision at all. I just think when you're that great, you deserve to be on or at least have an opportunity to be on the biggest stage, and she wasn't going to get that at Drexel.
Yeah, and they're also losing Allie Drake, which hurts. It's going to hurt their offense a lot. She's on the list too. But yeah, no, I agree. And that's what I mean. Like, to each their own. Like, that's just kind of the decision that you have to make. And it's not a decision that people were making 4 years ago. And now it is. Like, I wasn't in that culture. So, like, I don't really have experience with it. But that's just kind of the way it is now. Like, that's where you go. You get good, and then you go somewhere that help you shine being that good. So.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I think she's the best player available. So it'll be interesting to see where she ends up. Do you have any names? I have 3 more, but do you have any?
No, not particularly. I was surprised Lindsey Marshall was leaving from
That's
Towson,
next on my list.
going to Clemson. I was just like, because she only has 1 year of eligibility left, and that's a big move to go from to Clemson. And they just got like their new coach and everything. I don't know. Part of me wonders about like the culture going on at Towson, just because like they just got Cookie Carr, didn't they? Like literally this year. So
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be a good culture shift for Towson. Like, in the beginning of the year, like I thought that was going to be huge for them, because I knew that their culture wasn't great prior to that. So I was like, okay, new coach, like reset for them. So I was surprised she was leaving.
So I'm a big fan of Lindsey Marshall. I've watched her for a few years, and she just does everything really well. Like, she doesn't blow you away, in my opinion, in any, like, with her shooting or her draw controls. She just does everything at a high level. Like, kind of like Belle Smith. She's just very consistent, in my opinion. And so it'll be interesting to see how that translates to the ACC. But I'm excited. It'll be good to see her. Like you said, she's committed to Clemson according to Iowa Women, and it'll be, what would be interesting is if Jenika Cuocco went to a program like Clemson as well, because Clemson is a team that's never made. I see the face. Hold on, let me just explain. Clemson has never made it to the tournament. They've been this close, and you got to think, if from a transfers perspective, do you want to go to a program, which this is something everyone has to ask themselves. Rachel Clark and Emma LaPinto wanted to go to a program that almost assured them a Final Four appearance. They did that. They won a national championship. Do you want to go to a program like BC, UNC, Northwestern that has done it already? Or do you want to go to a program and try and be the first at that program to do it?
See, and that's what I think. I think that's why I gave you the face, because like I think that's just transferring from like upper middle tier to upper middle tier. Like she's still not going to win an ACC championship. Like if she went from Drexel to Clemson, like she's still not going to win an ACC championship most likely. She's still probably not going to make it past like the first, second round. Like it's still going to be like, I think it would be a very even transfer. Like if she's transferring to go like be on best, you know, then my opinion, I would think that's a pretty even like transfer, but I don't know.
Respect to Drexel, I think that would be a step up, especially going into next year, because I think it's going to be a tough season for them next year.
Potentially. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that she wouldn't get anything. She would make the tournament, which she's already done. So like
she hasn't won a tournament game though.
No, she has not. I don't know if Clemson would either, but maybe.
Maybe she'll go to Duke
and gotta make it first.
Yeah, that is true. They've been very close the past few years. Okay, so 2 more names for me. Lots of really good goalies. That's what stood out to me. So Jocelyn Torres, goalie at Virginia Tech, and Lexi Coldiron, goalie at Lafayette. Lafayette's they're just not a team that wins a lot, so she might go under the radar. She's a very good goalie. She's a 3-year starter for them. And I'm a big fan of her from watching her. I think she is very underrated. And I think, maybe she goes to a program like Clemson. I think she's a very good goalie. And I think wherever she goes, she'll kind of put people on notice of that. And Jocelyn Torres, which we'll get to Virginia Tech. When she was a freshman, not this season, but last season, she like turned some heads. Like, this goalie is really good. And you're like, Virginia Tech's got a goalie for the next few years. And she started as a true freshman, started again last year. And so I think wherever she goes, that's going to elevate a team. And she is very good. And it's, I don't know what's going on at Virginia Tech. They have 8 players in the transfer portal. That's insane.
And they went 9-9, which like just simply isn't that bad.
Yeah.
It's not like you're trying. I don't know. Part of me wonders like if people are trying to get the heck out of the ACC because like it's so star-studded and like you're like if you're on a team like Virginia Tech, I don't know. I just think that like you're never gonna get the chance to be like big fish in a little pond in ACC, and I don't know if that's affecting people or not. Like some people don't want that, some people do. But
8 transfers in one off season, that's a lot. There's got to be more to that story. 8 transfers. Yeah, that's right. 8 transfers for Virginia Tech. So they're also losing Olivia Vergano, who I could have this. I think she was their best offensive player, but I could be wrong. I want to say she was originally committed to Army and then flipped to Virginia Tech, or she was at Army for a year and then went to Virginia Tech. One of those 2 scenarios to stay with Coach Skyra. So to lose her, a person that followed you, that's a tough one. It'll be interesting to see where she ends up. She's from New York. Maybe she goes to Stony Brook. I don't know. They're losing Alex Fenn. They're losing Ellie Macera. There's going to be openings on that attack.
Yeah.
I don't know, but any thoughts on Virginia Tech? Any final thoughts on them before I rattle off some teams for you?
No, not really. I am surprised by that many people transferring. You just never know what's going on in the program and what could be like causing it, but
yeah. So other teams there was a flurry of teams with at least 5 transfers. Butler, Eastern Michigan, and Longwood all had 6. What caught my eye that I don't have written down, the number is, wait, do I? No, I don't. Okay. South Florida, they had a few people transfer out. I'm like, why in the world?
5 or 6.
Yeah, I'm like, that is bizarre. And I don't think Rhode Island has had as many, but they had a few as well. I'm like, you just missed out a whole year of eligibility to go to a school to be part of the first team ever, and then you transfer out and you don't get to be a part of the first team ever. So that just blows my mind. I don't know what's going on with that. That's just very odd to see from the outside looking in. So
that is weird. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why that would be the case.
Yeah. So
spent so much time.
Yeah. So that then Old Dominion with 7. Obviously, their coach had the DUI at the end of the season, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. 7 is a lot of transfers, and then Xavier with 11. That's if you think 8 is bad, 11 is atrocious. You don't have 11. That's not by coincidence. 11 transfers in one off season. So, that's just a shocking number. 11. That's like
the starting lineup.
Yeah. So that's pretty crazy. Any final thoughts on the transfer portal?
Yeah, I hate it.
You and Coach Kimmel.
I just think it's ruining the sport. I have such a hard time with it. And again, do what you got to do. I'm not the one to say anything to hinder your dreams. I just think, and it's not like individual. I hate it. Like I don't hate it for, like I'm happy and like people are getting to transfer and put themselves in better positions, put them in better places for what they want to do and accomplish. Like individually, it's not a bad thing. I just have such a hard time with the gap it's gonna put in the sport. Like the good are gonna get better, and the cap's gonna just keep getting better. And like I think we're gonna see it with all. This is true of all sports. Like it's just the way that things are going now. Like they go to. I just don't love it. I don't know what the solution is, because I don't want to tell these people to not go somewhere to get better and do more and flourish. But like, it just is unfortunate, I think.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Megan?
Nope.
Oh, sorry. I saw you went unmuted. So yeah, I think, like you said, with the gap, it's interesting because I feel like that's what you would think, and maybe that's what will happen. But this year, I feel like it was the most competitive the sport has been that I can remember. Like everyone was beating everyone, so it was a little disappointing to see three of the big boys, if you will, in the Final Four plus Florida.
Yeah.
Which Florida, shout out to them, because they went to the fourth quarter tied. Shout out to Florida. They played a hell of a game. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And maybe it won't happen. I just don't see how it doesn't. Because like you have like underdogs just constantly fighting these like 5 big schools. You know, I don't know. It just makes it like less fun. But
yeah.
Whatever happens.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to topic number 3. This is a little bit of a sad one. Karson is saying goodbye to the podcast. I'll be honest. When I first heard that she was going to step away to focus on, her professional career, which is totally fair, I cried that night. I was so sad. I texted our other board member, Cynthia, and I thought, I was like, yeah, I'll be honest, I cried. So Karson has been here for a little more than a year and a half. She started with episode 11, and this will be episode 43. So if my math is correct, that's 32 episodes total. That's a lot of episodes, Karson.
That is a lot of episodes. Wow. I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah, if a little more than a year and a half, it feels like it's been at least 2. I don't know. The season is so long. It just like it's so long. But yeah, your first episode. Do you remember what date your first episode was?
Oh God, no, definitely not. It was in February, like February 6th. That's my guess.
False. It was it was October 11th, 2022.
Oh. I thought it started before season. Shoot.
Hey, that would be a fair guess to make. So Karson, what do you have as this is your final episode? What do you have coming up in your life?
Yeah. Well, I'm still in school for another year before I get a job. And it is like an online school for until April. So I'm kind of just like planning a bunch of trips and fun things and trying to like really maximize my time until I have to get a big girl job and I lose all of my time. So like I'm going to Disney at the end of August, and I'm going to Vancouver in December to see Taylor Swift. I'm so excited
gosh,
about.
I was
For the second time. I'm flying all the way to Canada. And I'm also training for the Dopey Challenge, which is also at Disney, which is a 5K on Thursday, a 10K on Friday, a half marathon on Saturday, and a marathon on Sunday. So I'm training for that currently. What? I just did my first week of training last week. Yep. So that'll be fun. I'm gonna walk a bunch of dogs so that I can make a little money while I am in school. Yeah. So I just kind of trying to finish school out the best I can and live my life a little while I do it.
Hey, that's good, because like you said, once you get a job, it's crazy how little free time you have. It sucks.
Right. Exactly.
And then the free time you do have, you have to go to the urgent care because your dog bites your nose, like I had to yesterday. So,
yeah.
Are you gonna hold any more? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just laughing. I did look back at like my conference predictions at the beginning for them. We predicted at the beginning, and I was like, maybe it is best that I retire from the podcast. I was only 7 for 15, so I was under 50%. So then I was like, maybe it's time. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
just to give you crap one last time, didn't you take the safe picks you said when you made those conference predictions?
I thought I did. I thought I was going to be like 96%. I was so confident, but I was very wrong.
I'll have to go back and look. Yeah. So we're lacrosse extras. We're going on our 2-week break next weekend, I want to say, or the weekend after this comes out, just as we normally do at the end of the season, because it's so long. We need time to recover and recuperate, So I'll have to go when I get some free time. I'll have to go and look and see how I did. But yeah, that's 7 for 15.
It was tough.
That's how it goes sometimes.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Awesome.
Because also UNC like killed me from the very beginning, that hurt.
Hey, I gave you an out with them. I said you could transfer. Okay.
I know, and I didn't want to. I had to double down.
I respect the stubbornness. Are you gonna? Should we expect to see you on Instagram holding any more snakes on these vacations?
No, probably
Thank
not.
Goodness.
Disney, we should be safe. Vancouver, probably safe. Can't imagine this is a city. And then I'll be back in Disney, so no, probably not.
So is just to refresh my memory, are you going to the Taylor Swift concert with the same one the Gaspars are going to, or was it a different night?
No, it was a different night. They're going Saturday. I'm going Sunday.
Okay. Shout out to the Gaspars. They're playing for Team Canada, I believe, box lacrosse this weekend. Hell of a career for them at Arizona State. Just to end with this, it's like, obviously I have to say goodbye to you because, you're moving on to bigger and better things. But it is so sad this time of year to see careers come to a close, especially when players have played for so long. Like Caitlin Wurzberger, she scored a goal late in the Florida game when it was running clock, and she was crying after the goal before the game was even like, that was heartbreaking to see. It was heartbreaking to see Cassidy Spillis' career come to a close. And obviously the players we've had on this podcast, we feel a little more connected to them. So Madison Ahern, Izzy Skane, obviously, like, man, that was tough. It was, and seeing their goodbye messages when they post on social media, those are tough. Those are like, obviously I'm a little sensitive, so like those get me emotional. Like the sport of lacrosse has given so much to these players, and they've given so much back. And like, obviously you can speak on this better than I can because you played for 5 years at that. Like, it's just such a special time in your life. There's nothing that outside of sports that gives you the same feeling of sports. As competition it's a powerful thing. Being a part of a team is a powerful thing. You can't get that outside of sports. And so like it's just heartbreaking to see, like, it's obvious it happens every year. It's going to happen until the end of time, but it's just heartbreaking to see players and their careers come to a close, knowing that, man, like, I loved watching this player and I know what it means. Like, I only played through high school, but I cried the night of my last high school game. Like, and like even a year or two after, I would like think about, oh, we should have done this, should have done that. So like, I can't imagine playing in college. Like, that's just tough to say goodbye to so many amazing players and people.
Yeah, that's funny. So that I was actually just having this conversation with Corinne because I was like, oh my God, how does it feel to be done? Like, she's like, I'm just going to miss like playing the sport so much. And I was like, it's funny because you think like when you first end, you're like, oh, I'm going to miss like the sport and these people and all this stuff. And like what you realize further out is that like you miss those people and you miss the sport, but really like you miss that feeling. Like you don't get that feeling of like, oh, I scored a goal. Like I'm so proud of myself. Like I'm so happy. And like people telling you like, you're doing a great job, like good job, like way to hustle, like way to make that play. You don't get that. Like you get onto the workforce and they're like, or you go to more school and they're like, oh, you did your job. Congrats. There's no like, oh, I'm like I have that like feeling in me of like proud and like, I made my teammates happy. I did something for them. Like there's not as much of that in the real world. So I feel like when you say goodbye, initially you're just like sad that it's over. And then you, after a couple years, you're like, I haven't felt that feeling of what it was like to like score a goal or make a cool play since then. But there's just like not anything that like copies that feeling. I feel like in the real world. That's like the most interesting to me, I think.
For sure. And especially nowadays, I mean, the players, it's so fun to see them celebrate and show their emotions. Like nothing else you do in life, you're not going to be able to throw down your lacrosse stick and have that feeling of like the feeling when the ball hits the back of the net. Like that's a great feeling, and like you just, like you said, like you're not going to have anyone telling you this stuff. And like all the high fives, all the hugs, all the smiles, like sports is just so unique and so special. Like there's no place like sports, is that what an ESPN commercial said. So yeah, definitely heartbreaking. it was cool to see a lot of players in the All-Star game for the IWLCA seniors. That was cool. Corinne was one of them. So yeah, just this is a little bit of a sad ending to the episode, but it's how it goes sometimes. We're humans. Okay, so awesome. Before we bring Megan in to hopefully not fact check us, but hey Megan, if you do have any fact check, this is your time to destroy Karson because you won't have to deal with her again. Okay. But is there anything you want to end with, Karson?
Yeah, of course. I just want to say thank you for the podcast and thank you for bringing me on. It was really fun to stay connected to lacrosse through all of this. I don't think I probably would have been as connected and been watching as many games without it. So it was really fun doing with you. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone that listened along the way, even though I was wrong more times than I was right. I appreciate you guys still listening and letting me give my opinions to everybody. So yeah, thank you.
Yes, you will definitely be missed. Hey, I will still be sending you text messages, so don't leave me on red too often now. Okay. Awesome. And Megan, do you have anything to end with? Did we make any mistakes?
No, the only thing that I want to mention is that I don't think Olivia Volgana actually trended from anywhere. I think she started at Virginia Tech because I looked up everything I could about her.
Yeah. Okay. So she must have been an Army commit then and flipped to Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm glad we did well for that. Yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Megan, on anything we talked about? Any hot takes?
No, but I'm surprised you guys didn't mention Nicole Humphrey transferring to back to UNC.
I feel like she's old news.
Well, yeah, but still, that usually players don't do that.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah, so we actually I was in touch with her a few weeks ago, and so I'd reached out during the season, so we were supposed to have an interview earlier in the summer, but since she was planning on announcing her commitment with IL, and we have some other stories to do, we're just going to circle back to that. Yeah. So we will have a story on Nicole Humphrey coming out, and what her season has been like, because it is pretty crazy, like you said, to go from North Carolina to California back to North Carolina in the course of the year. So it should be interesting. So yeah. Thank you for listening. It's been a lot of fun, and like I said, we'll be taking off a few weeks, and then follow us on Instagram for future updates on the next podcast co-host, which they have humongous shoes to fill. And not just because Karson wears a size 12.5. JK, I don't think she wears that big of a shoe.
Thank you.
So awesome. Thank you for listening. And we will be back next time on The Player and the Journalist. Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy this episode of The Player and the Journalist? If so, please leave us a review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to help the show reach new fans.